Stranger Things Season 5 may have ended. Or, some people think that theory that there's still one more episode. That crazy theory, I'm not going to talk on that in that video. But I don't think the real villain of this story is gone. Vecna's dead. The Upside Down is destroyed. The gates are closed. And yet, I don't believe the Mind Flayer is gone. Not defeated, not erased, just waiting. In the words of Master Qui-Gon Jinn,
there's always a bigger fish.
So welcome to Big Flick Energy, and let's get right into it. And before I start, I want to preface this by saying the Duffer Brothers have been responding to some of these questions people have had about the finale, and let's just say they don't sound confident in their own answers. So while they said the Mind Flayer is dead, the way they've continuously said, I guess, and probably, for the responses to these questions makes me think anything that wasn't specifically shown in the show was never even thought about and has no official answer to it from the Duffer Brothers, and I consider their quick social media answers null and void. Them saying, I guess the military just left because the person of interest wasn't there anymore, despite Hopper killing members of the US military, is a wild statement to make from the apparent masterminds of the show. I enjoyed the finale and Season 5, but these plot holes are not helping, and the Duffer responses to them is honestly just making everything worse. But now that that's out of the way, let's get back to the theory, because I don't believe what they say at all. At least not right now. One of the most important things Season 5 does, and it does this very intentionally, is separate Vecna from the Mind Flayer. When the story dies, and the story ends, Vecna doesn't fade. He doesn't weaken, he dies. His death is violent, physical, and final. But the Mind Flayer, that's handled completely differently. Instead of destruction, we're shown deterioration. The shape collapses, the color darkens, and the presence withdraws. That isn't how Stranger Things depicts death. It's how it depicts something losing a host. And once you see that distinction, everything that follows starts to make sense. After Vecna's defeat and our protagonists free the kids from his tentacles which sent them to Camazotz, we see the Mind Flayer smoke escape from the mouths of the kids. That moment is easy to overlook if you're not thinking historically, because Stranger Things has already taught us what that means. Back in Season 2, after Will is supposedly freed from the Mind Flayer, smoke escapes from his mouth, and then they discover that in Season 3, that smoke actually was part of the Mind Flayer, and it stayed on their side of the world, starting to just create a new version of the Mind Flayer on Earth. And then it happens again in Season 5, even after the connection is severed, even after the threat is gone. Which tells us something crucial. The Mind Flayer doesn't vanish when it's cut off, it disperses. So when Season 5 mirrors that exact imagery, it's not a coincidence or a callback for nostalgia, it's confirmation. The smoke that escapes isn't residue, it's survival. It's the same smoke-like form we see in Henry Creel's earliest memories of the Mind Flayer. The body didn't die, instead it escaped. And that brings us to a strange absence in the finale. Vecna faces his end alone. No Demogorgons, no Demodogs, no Demobats swarming in to protect him. At first glance, that feels really odd, until you remember that Vecna was never the origin of the hive mind, instead he was the conduit. The Mind Flayer didn't lose its army, it chose not to deploy it, or as I'll get into later, since the army is an extension of the Mind Flayer, chose to re-merge with it as protection. Because if Vecna fell, the army would be exposed. And the Mind Flayer doesn't fight like a general, it fights like a parasite. It preserves itself first and foremost. Which suggests that Vecna had already outlived his usefulness, Mind Flayer did not need Vecna anymore, and the Mind Flayer had a new plan on its own. Now the obvious question becomes, if the Upside Down is destroyed, where does the Mind Flayer even go if it still exists? And the answer is uncomfortable, because the show has already told us. And that's that the Upside Down isn't actually destroyed. Sure, everything, including the backwards Hawkins in it, is gone, But the Upside Down itself is still alive and well, there's just no portal to it yet. The problem has never been access, it's control. 11's alive, Russian scientists are still alive, and between them, humanity has already learned how to tear holes between dimensions to get to the Upside Down. So I wouldn't be surprised if they can do it again. And what of Dimension X, that we still know very little about? Because we found out that Dimension X, the Upside Down, and our Earth are all connected, and that the Upside Down is just a wormhole to Dimension X. But if we're saying that the Upside Down is still alive, and I'll get into that a little more further later, what happened to Dimension X? Because a bullet caused a crack in the wormhole, and that crack healed. A bomb at the end of Season 5 caused a massive disruption, and that disruption will take a while, a much longer while than the bullet will take to heal, but it will most likely also heal. Disruption isn't destruction, which means Dimension X almost certainly still exists. Dormant, fractured, unreachable for now. Just like the Mind Flayer itself. And this is where the briefcase stone becomes impossible to ignore. It's the object that gave Henry his powers. It's the object that connected him to the Mind Flayer. And it's the one piece of mythology the show has yet to fully explain. And that is not accidental. As the Duffer Brothers themselves have said about a spin-off of Stranger Things they are working to develop, the spin-off is going to delve into that and explain that, and you're going to understand it, Matt Duffer said of the briefcase rock. But it's a completely different mythology, so it's not a deep exploration of the Mind Flayer or anything like that. It's very fresh and very new, but yes, it will answer some of those loose threads that are remaining. And honestly, to me, that quote changes how we should interpret everything. When the Duffers say different mythology, that does not mean the Mind Flayer is gone. It means the town will be different and the characters will be different, but most importantly, the vessel will be different. Vecna's powers were built around how it all started for him. Physical dominance and his connection to spiders, and wanting to change the world through his physical dominance. I mean, he literally killed a guy to get the briefcase as a kid. His creatures reflected that physical domination through hive mind. But that's not the only power set we've seen come out of the Rainbow Room, the place where all of these kids were trained with their powers from a very young age. One character stands out. 8 is the outlier. Her abilities weren't telekinetic in the same way as all the other kids. They weren't about physical force or domination. They were about perception, altering reality through illusion. And here's the important part. We only saw Vecna use those abilities once. Yeah, sure, we saw him a decent amount of times, use it in people's minds more often, but an illusion in the real world that you can walk through after making physical contact with it proving itself to be a lie, that wasn't done. Vecna's illusions, you could very clearly tell when that person was in a trance if you were not that person. 8's illusions, everybody was falling for them. Now, you can argue the scene where Hopper shoots 11's tank is that, but it was more so in his mind, which strongly suggests they weren't his, those abilities. Or Creel didn't care to fully explore those abilities. They were instead another avenue, another way the Mind Flayer could operate, but chose not to through Henry. Remember, Henry made it very clear that he is many things, but one thing he is not is a liar. And while he had a very distorted way of thought, it's kind of true. He told the kids they were going to change the world, and even though it wasn't how they probably thought, he didn't lie. The man spoke the truth, even though it was a distorted and maniacal version of the truth. So, illusions that flat out lie about what is really happening weren't his thing, but could very well be the next vessel's strategy, lying and deceiving. And the canon play Stranger Things The First Shadow strengthens this even more. It reveals that the stones were the result of military experimentation, and that one of them entered the world through betrayal of a scientist. It also introduces a 1943 experiment where the US attempted to make submarines invisible during World War II. To do that, they traveled to Dimension X, which reframes everything. If illusion-based power exists, if invisibility was the goal, And if the stone came from Dimension X, then 8's abilities may not be an anomaly, they may be the future. And to make a submarine invisible, I think an illusion-based power set would be a pretty good tool to use. So when the Duffers say the next story will feel fresh, I don't think they mean a new cosmic villain. I think they mean a new expression of the same one. A vessel who doesn't dominate with monsters, but with perception. A mythology built around illusion, misdirection, and unseen influence. A story where the horror isn't what you see, but it's what you don't see, and it's what you can't trust. Vecna was the brute force solution. This next vessel could be something far more subtle. Vecna was the face of Stranger Things, but the Mind Flayer was, and is always, the mind behind it. And minds don't die when bodies fail. They wait. So with that, thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments, do you think the Mind Flayer is truly gone or just waiting? Did you enjoy Stranger Things Season 5? Are you excited for the animated Tales from 85 series? Do you think they should add the first Shadow to Netflix, same as how Disney Plus added Hamilton? And are you looking forward to the spin-off series with this teased new mythology? Let me know down in the comments. Thanks again, and see you all next time on Big Flick Energy.